Hello everyone and welcome back to another full English grammar in use video with me. In the last video, we talked about two important basic modal verbs, can and could. If you haven't watched it and you'd like to, here's the link. In this video, we're going to be specifically looking at modals of obligation. So, with no more words being said, let's just get started. Like we said before, modal verbs are used in many different situations. They are helping verbs and they help us to understand the main verb better. We use them to talk about permission, suggestion, ability, probability, possibility, obligation. And today we're going to be specifically talking about obligation. So the modals that we use to talk about obligation are must and mustn't or must not, should and shouldn't or should not, can and can't, which we've already talked about. Can is more of a permission kind of modal verb, but can't is also used as an obligation. We use must and mustn't or must not to talk about something that is necessary, something that is very, very important. So it's used as a strong personal advice that I give because I think something is very important. Like it's a matter of life and death. It's something like that. For example, you must stop smoking. That's a matter of life and death. I think that the person must stop smoking. I think that you must stop smoking because smoking is very bad for you. Alfred must take his pills. He must take it seriously. I think it's a very important thing that Alfred must take it seriously. He must take his pills. It's a matter of life and death. We also use must to talk about an obligation coming from the speaker. So if I am the speaker, the obligation is coming from me. For example, I must go home. We must be there at 8. Shh, we're in the library. We must be quiet. So these are obligations that are coming from me. We also use must to talk about law-related rules, official rules and obligations coming from someone because of the rules. Must in this situation is more about formal English. It's mostly used in written English. So we don't use it in spoken English. We mostly use it in formal or written English. For example, all mobile phones must be switched off during the flight. Members of the audience must keep their phones silent during the performance. Parents must be more careful about their children. They are all obligations and they are all coming from someone because of the rules or just because they're very important. We use must not or mustn't, the negative form of must, to talk about things that are prohibited. We are not allowed to do them. Like we have no choice, not at all. We are not allowed to do them, like not at all. So it's a very strong negative obligation. For example, you mustn't wear ripped jeans to work. It means that we are not allowed to wear ripped jeans to work because in that place everybody else wears formal clothes. You showing up in ripped jeans is a very bad thing. You mustn't talk to your boss like that. Obviously, that's a very bad thing because he'll fire you. So you're not allowed to talk to your boss like that. If you do, he'll fire you. That's very important not to talk to your boss like that. People mustn't leave litter lying around. Litter is waste paper, empty bottles that people drop on the ground. Rubbish garbage. It's all about that. So people mustn't leave litter lying around because it's a bad thing. It's very important for people not to do that. So they have to obey the rules and not leave their rubbish lying around. They must keep it clean. We all must keep our streets clean. We've also got another modal verb to talk about restriction, things that are forbidden, prohibited, and negative obligations. And that modal verb is can't. Can't. We've already talked about can and can't. We know that can is more of a permission kind of modal verb, but for can't, we also use it for restriction. So we use can to talk about things that are okay, we've got the permission to do, it's fine, they are allowed, but we use can't to talk about things that are not permitted, we are not allowed to do. It's not okay to do, they're forbidden, because they are against the rules and it's just not possible to do them. For example, you can park here. It means you're allowed to park here. It's fine. There is no problem. You can't park here. It means that you're restricted. You're not allowed to park here. You can take your dog for a walk in this park. It means it's okay. You can do it. You can't take your dog for a walk in this park. It means it's against the rules and you can't do that. It's restricted. You can bring with you whatever you want. You can't bring anything with you. You can pay by credit card. You can't pay by credit card here. Cash only. It means it's not possible. It's a rule and it's against the rules to pay by credit card. Cash only. So we use can and can't to talk about permission and obligation, being allowed to do something or not being allowed to do something because it's against the rules or because it's prohibited, just like mustn't or must not. And our last modal verb here, should and shouldn't. We use should to talk about general advice or when we want to make suggestions. So it's not as strong as must. It's a very weak obligation. It's more about your opinion on what you think is better to do or not to do. If something is right or is not right. So it's a very weak obligation and it's more about general advice. Things you think that are better to be done or not. For example, I see my colleague at work, but she doesn't look so well. Not that she's dying, no, she just looks a bit unwell or tired, maybe. So I'd say, Freya, you should take the day off. You should go home and rest. I think she should also see a doctor because that's better for her. That's better for her to just go home and rest and take the day off and see a doctor. Or for example, you should be more careful. You should be more careful. I think it's better for you to be more careful. That's the right thing to do. And for the negative form, should not, we often use the short form, shouldn't. Shouldn't. You shouldn't drink so much coffee. It's not good for you. You'd better not drink too much coffee because it's not good for you. And because I don't think that's a good idea to drink too much coffee. You shouldn't worry too much about everything. Everything's going to be fine and nothing's going to happen. It means that it's better for you not to worry too much. You should take it easy. I'm giving advice. I'm saying that you should just not take it so seriously. So you shouldn't worry too much. We can also use both should and must to talk about suggestions when we want to make suggestions. Again, we could say that should is weaker than must. For example, you should visit the National Museum. It's beautiful. So I'm giving advice, or I could say I'm making a suggestion. As if I'm saying, yeah, it's a nice place. I think you should go there. It'll be worth it. But we use must to talk about a very strong suggestion or recommendation. Like it's a matter of life and death if you don't do it or if you do it, because it's a very important thing. I am strongly suggesting that. For example, have you watched the animated series Arcane? It's amazing. It's absolutely stunning. Like you should watch it strongly. You have to do it. So it's a must watch. If you don't do it, it seems as if you're missing something. And I don't want you to miss it. Now let's get to the structure. Must, can and should are all modal verbs. And you must remember that no changes happen to modal verbs. They remain unchanged. They do not change forms. And by that I mean they do not accept to, ing, ed, third person singular as, nothing. They all remain the same. For positive sentences, we have subject plus modal verb, must, should, or can, plus bare infinitive verb, an infinitive without to. For example, I must study. She should go. You can sit. So these modal verbs remain the same and unchanged for all the subjects, and nothing happens to them. They do not change forms and they do not accept anything. For the negative form, we only add a not. Subject plus modal verb plus not plus bare infinitive verb. And in this situation, we have must not or mustn't, should not or shouldn't, cannot or can't. For example, we mustn't smoke here. He shouldn't come. They can't go in. And for the question form, again, we have WH questions, yes or no questions. For yes or no questions, we switch the place of subject and the modal verb. But remember that we often do not bring must as a question at the beginning of the sentence. So we can bring should and can before the subject to make a question. For example, can we play here? Should I knock? But we usually do not say, must I go? We say, do I have to? Do I have to? So we use do plus subject plus have to plus verb. So, do I have to go? And if we want to answer, can we play here? Yes, you can. No, you can't. Should I knock? Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. Do I have to go? Yes, you do. No, you don't. Or if we want to give a longer answer, we can answer it with must. For example, do we have to wear formal clothes to the event? Yes, you must wear your finest clothes, or they won't let us in. We could also use their negative forms as a yes or no question. So instead of can and should at the beginning of the sentence, we could also use can't and shouldn't. For example, can't we take pictures? Yes, you can. No, you can't. Shouldn't he be here? Yes, he should. No, he shouldn't. And for the WH question sentences, we can only add a WH question word before the yes or no question. For example, why should I be quiet? Everyone else is talking. Why can't we go to the party? We to anyone. When do we have to go? Where should I sit? Okay, I would also like to add this point that we do not have any past forms for should and must. They are used just like that. But for can and can't, we do have past forms. Could and couldn't. Now let's practice. Which modal verb would you use in each sentence? You look so tired. You sleep. That's correct. You should sleep. So I think it's better for you to sleep. That's a weak suggestion or advice. Hey, tell those kids that they leave their stuff here. It's dangerous. Correct. We can use all the three of them. Mustn't, shouldn't, and can't. So if we want to say like, tell those kids they mustn't leave their stuff here, it's dangerous. That makes more sense because it's dangerous and we don't want anything bad to happen. So they mustn't leave their stuff here. And we can also use can't because it's almost the same as mustn't. They both mean the same thing here. You're not allowed. It's restricted. It's banned. And we can also use shouldn't, like they shouldn't leave their stuff here. It's dangerous, but it seems as if, okay, not that I care much, but I think it's better for them not to leave it here. So we can use all the three of modal verbs in their negative forms. And they all make sense here. Our teacher said, your homework on Thursday, or I will not check it and you'll lose marks. That's right. You must hand in your homework on Thursday. Because she said if you don't, then you will lose marks. That's a bad thing. If we don't do that, a bad thing is going to happen. So we can't say you can hand in your homework because it seems as if we have a choice, but we don't have a choice. The same thing goes for should. You should hand in your homework on Thursday. It doesn't seem as if she's advising us on that. She's not giving us advice. She's being strict on that. She's telling us that we have to do it. Like it's very important. It's very necessary. So you must hand in your homework on Thursday. It says men only. We in there. That's right. Mustn't or can't. So we can't go in there. We mustn't go in there because it's against the rules. It says men only. So it's against the rules if we go there. It's prohibited, it's restricted, it's forbidden. So well done everyone, that was today's lesson. You did a great job. So in today's lesson we learned about 4 modals of obligation. Must and mustn't, which is a strong advice. Should and shouldn't, a bit weaker. And can and can't. Can is a bit more of a permission modal verb and can't is the same as mustn't. Something that is against the rules. Though I must add that there are some other ways and structures to talk about obligation that we didn't cover in this video, but we surely do in other videos. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on other platforms such as Instagram and Telegram. Join us there as well as we share new content all the time. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you later. It's restricted. It's restricted. It's restricted. Just forget about it.